Okay, good morning everybody and welcome along to the final breakfast event for the year. It's been fantastic to see most of you before, and we are going to do it all again next year, so keep your eye on the staff announcements and we'll offer a few more of these breakfasts next year. And welcome to the folks online. There's a few out there, and this session is being recorded just to give you a bit of a heads up, so if you're going to type or say anything you consider controversial, remember that it's been recorded. I'm very pleased to welcome Professor Michael Sankey from USQ. He's visiting Adelaide at the moment on a few committees, and he's taken the time to speak to us today. So I'll hand over to Michael. Thanks very much. We'll handle the Q&A as we go. We'll need to use this microphone, obviously, so that people online can hear. So if you've got a question, just give me a moment to come over to you with the mic. Okay, thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, came down yesterday lunchtime, flew down from Toowoomba in Queensland. Who knows where Toowoomba is? Cool. It's about 120 kilometres inland from Brisbane. Sits up on top of the Great Dividing Range, and very temperate climate up there, so we don't get a lot of the humidity they get down in Brisbane, which is really very nice. Second largest inland city in Australia, after Canberra. So we've got from USQ there, and that's stretched its boundaries out across the whole southeast corner of Queensland and moving further out west as we go. So I've just put up my Instagram site. I popped down yesterday afternoon and took some photos while I was down here of the new research centre there. That kind of took my fancy. It takes a lot of people's fancy, I think. And down at the pier, can't remember which one it was. No, Henley Road, that's it. So yeah, I went to dinner with Shane last night, and I got down there a few minutes early, and there was the thunder and lightning were coming in across the water. It was very nice, yes. Now I've got to turn that one off, don't I, to go back onto stop sharing. I'm going to present there. Cool. All right, thank you for all coming along to hear me this morning and to participate. Now, do I have to get something to get that syncing with this? It's now not doing that. Yeah. Okie dokie. That's working. Okay, cool. All right, sorry about that. At USQ, now that's not showing the animations, so. Okay, here we go. So USQ, 28,000 students, still growing. We've got about a 7% growth for next year, and had 5% growth each year for the last few years. On campus, though, only 7,700. So external, 20,000 students. So 72% of all our students study online. What was by distance education, now what we call multimodal education, are very heavily relying on our Moodle learning management system to back what we do. International students, about 6,000, only about 1,000 of those studying on campus. Importantly, though, with that kind of demographic, with a lot of external students, we've got a very good retention rate, 88% retention rate. For a distance education institution, that's pretty good. And I'm postulating that's because of how we support our students. It's what our students tell us. We love the way you support us in everything that we do in our studies. So I'm going to talk through some of the strategies we have for supporting our students and also how we support our staff, because if we don't support our staff, they can't support our students and properly. So we take a bit of the load off our academic staff and give it to some professional staff who specialise in supporting students and helping them through their student learning journey. So all students access all their information online with us. Every course has an online presence. Campuses, those still in Toowoomba, Springfield, we've just taken over the Ipswich campus from the University of Queensland, and we have a small wine campus down in Stanthorpe, which is down the Granite Belt in Queensland. We have an international campus in Sydney and also our Fraser Coast campus, which some of you may have heard is we've just sold to University of Sunshine Coast. We want to concentrate on that southeast corner going out west, that western corridor, so we came to a nice arrangement with University of Sunshine Coast to take on our Fraser Coast campus. It's always been a small campus. It takes about 5 hours to get there from Toowoomba, so I'm breathing a sigh of relief. I don't have to travel up there all the time. I prefer the beaches a bit further south than that. When you come to USQ, we're pretty upfront about what you would expect. Students know that most of the students who come to us obviously are distance education students. They want that online experience, and they know what they're getting themselves in for, because we prepare them reasonably well. I won't say perfectly, not at all, but we prepare them reasonably well for that experience. And most staff who come to USQ also know that's what we do. It's our core business. But to do that, as I mentioned, we've got to line up our institutional ducks. And some of the current strategies we have is that, as I mentioned, every course has an online presence in Moodle, and there is a named person. A student gets a named person to be in touch with that follows them through their program. So, and that's called a student relationship officer. I'll talk a little bit more about them in a few minutes. But that named person follows them. And that named person might have, no, I'll stop there and I'll come back to that one. Otherwise I'll lose the flow. There are minimum standards for all our courses. All our courses do have to be, the lecturer has to be in the course at least 3 times a week responding to forum posts and things like that. They have to respond within 48 hours to specific queries. They have to put up a welcome message into the course, and usually accompanied by a photo or video or whatever it might be. And I'll show you what that looks like in a few minutes in a Moodle course. There are threshold expectations in terms of what a course looks like. We just don't allow people to just put up whatever they want, though some still try. And we work with them to try and bring about a common solution. It's not about sameness, though. It's about consistency. So we're not saying you have to do it this way because everybody else does it that way. We expect the students to have a consistent experience. So when they go from one course to the next, they're not having to relearn how to use Moodle every time they go into Moodle. So it's about consistency, not sameness. And I'll show you some of the things we've done to provide some of that consistency. We have what's called Learning Innovation Enhancement teams that are made up of academic developers, learning designers, e-learning designers and things like that. And each year, each semester, the faculties nominate a series of courses that they want to be worked on in an intense way, and those teams work on those courses. Now, that doesn't mean that's all we do. We also work across all the courses who might require help as well. But we actually look at specific programs and specific clusters of courses to have a real hit onto those. Quite a large team we have. I run 2 units, the Learning Systems and Support team, which are about 20 people in that team, and also the Media Services team, which are photographers, videos, graphic designers, people like that. There's another 20 in that team. So we are... Across the whole university, yeah. So 40 people in my unit. Video is the currency of higher education now. And more we're finding that we're having to provide services to produce video of a reasonable quality. I mean, it's not expert quality, but it's good quality. So where in the old days we had 2 video, we used to make videos and DVDs and things like that. Now, of course, it's all online, our own Vimeo channel and things like that. But we are finding more and more we're employing people with cross skills. So not just a graphic designer, not just a multimedia developer, but those photographers and everything have to have more than one skill when we employ them. So they've got to be a videographer as well as a photographer, or a multimedia person as well as a graphic designer and things. So significant media enhancements are available for our staff. Or of course they've always got a book and things like that, so there's always some contention there, but we're trying to become more agile as we go. Strong focus on the student learning journey and also the personal learning environment, a la ePortfolio, what we do with LinkedIn, where we're going with all that stuff. Okay, so strong personal learning environment focus. We started with Mahara about 4 or 5 years ago. Currently there's 23,000 portfolios in there, about 19,000 active portfolios. And when I say an active portfolio, I mean it's been worked on in the last 3 months. So somebody's been in there working in their portfolio in the last 3 months. So 19,000. If a student comes to USQ, they set up their portfolio, they have it for life. We don't cut them out when they leave. They do have to keep up their association with the university through alumni and things like that, but they get to keep that for life, and we've committed to them that they can keep it for life. Of course, with Mahara, they can always download it and set it up as a website somewhere else as well. Increased emphasis on enabling staff. So we have recognised quite a few years ago now that the academic staff are the front line. I mean, they're the ones who are going to be answering most of the questions that the students have. And if we're not informing our staff as to the best way to support the students, then we're going to fail. So increased staff enabling program. Just to give you a bit of a context of our virtual learning environment, we call the virtual learning environment the Moodle Learning Management System and all those systems associated with that. So our USQ study desk, student facing, it runs Moodle. We have 3 Moodle instances, 3 main Moodle instances. We have others as well. But, excuse me, study desk is our student facing learning management system. We have our staff desk, which is for staff training and also playground for staff. And also our USQ Open Desk, which is where we have our open education resources and our community-based courses. An example of a community-based course would be, you might have heard that 3 years ago we had some massive floods in Toowoomba. I mean, we're 2,000 feet above sea level, and yet we just got this huge deluge of rain. And at the time we were cut off for a few days from the rest of the world, and which is crazy. But anyway, 80% of Queensland was underwater. That was amazing. There was a lot of trauma associated with that. So our psychology department set up a course on our USQ Open Desk to allow and let all the psychologists in Toowoomba access it for information, support materials and things like that. And they created a community amongst the psychologists in the Toowoomba area. So really neat use of learning management system there. So they could have discussions and things like that. It was agile. Across the top we have a website and portal, as most universities do. We keep all the website outward focused, so very little staff information is found on the website. It's all about students, supporting students, attracting students. So what we do is we actually use things like the staff desk for all our professional development activities and staff information and things like that, and starting to move into a bit more of WordPress and things like that. Across the bottom of all those systems sits our Quella Learning Object Repository. So we don't house the files in Moodle, we house them in a repository, which of course we house all our course readings and things like that, and all the objects, learning objects in there, and the open education resources and things. And across all those, again, we have our e-portfolio. I said we use Mahara for that. Using that for about 4 years. Quite a bit of interaction can happen now between ePortfolio and, Mahara and Moodle, and so we're trying to really work on that in terms of the graduate skills, the capabilities and things like that, and linking them back to outcomes within the ePortfolio. So Moodle has this thing called outcomes in it, and you can associate badges and all kinds of things with those outcomes if you want to, but more importantly we want to be able to feed those outcomes into the portfolio so students can then evidence those as they go through their practice. So education students, for example, who have to evidence their practice in schools and things like that will house those artefacts in our e-portfolio, and they're associated with the outcomes within Moodle. Okay, here's a look at our Moodle site. Here's an accounting course just captured the other day. At the top here, it's a standard, well, what we call a standard Moodle now, which is based on the decaf theme. You will see up the top here, though, we've added to that theme a bar, and we call that a communications bar. Now, in that bar, the student gets that site personalised to them. It pulls down their image and things like that from their profile or wherever Moodle can find it. It searches a number of different places for the image. Has drop-down menus up there for all the useful links, my courses and things like that. Now, you might be more familiar with Moodle having 3 columns. We've gone back to 2 columns. So allowing much more space on the right-hand side and introducing some extra navigation on the left-hand side here. And these are what we call tabs. And every time you go into one of those tabs, you're pulling up a Moodle HTML page. The next arrow then points to the little question mark up the top right-hand side, which is in that bar we've put across the top. If you click on that question mark, you'll be taken to our Right Now system. Right Now is a customer relationship management system. It knows what page you're on. So if you're on the page for assessment, you click on that question mark, it'll take you to the assessment page within Right Now. And if you have questions about what should I do about submitting assignments and things like that. If you're in the forums page, and if you click on that question mark, it'll take you to the information about forums and things like that within the Right Now system. So it's smart enough to know. I certainly didn't develop the code. It's smart enough to know what page it's on and what the metadata is associated with that. Down here, week 8, I think it is, or 8 weeks before the end. No, it must be week 8. We get this big yellow button in here. So the big yellow button is for student evaluations. My opinion, we call that. And since introducing that big yellow button, we've seen I think it's a 20% increase in the amount of feedback students are giving us in terms of the courses and things like that. It stays there, turns itself on at week 8, turns itself off at the end of the semester. If I was to slide down that page, yes, we've still got the Moodle scroll of death, but so necessary now. I mean, so many people are now accessing their information from mobile devices. You can't have it too much boxed up. It's just got to be still that ability to scroll down the page and things. So we're changing the way we're thinking about online environments quite considerably. So now we've got bootstrapped environments and things like that, resizing and things. It's much cleaner now, particularly since they're accessing it through those devices, to actually keep it long and simple. But we've introduced those tabs on the left-hand side, which I'm going to go into a couple of those now. So here we go. I've gone into the assessment tab. What we've done is dynamically generated that page from our PeopleSoft system. So we use PeopleSoft as our student management system. It generates the assignment items that are housed in PeopleSoft and bring them into that Moodle page for us. Then the lecturers can enhance that information. You'll see, I don't know if I've got a thing pointing to it. Yeah. So that pulls that information in, and you see there that arrow is pointing to an edit button. They can add as much information or as little information as they want about that assessment item to contextualise that assessment for the students. Taking that information out of the middle of Moodle. So students want to know about their assessment. That's one of the key things they want to know about. We've set up a special tab for assessment. This one we've just gone into the study schedule tab. So similarly, students want to know where they're at in a particular course. Now this is part of the legacy of our distance education heritage course. So in the olden days we had the package. We had the introductory book and the book of readings and the study modules, and it was just huge packages of stuff we used to send out. We had the big mailing room and things like that. That absolutely doesn't exist. We don't mail anything anymore. Everything's online. However, what that package we've done is, okay, well, how does that equate to the online space? So what we had to do is we had to deconstruct the package and bring it all up to the surface. So that's what those left-hand tabs do. So the study schedule is part of the introductory book, and so that's now been brought up to the surface as a specific tab, because one of the things students really want to know, where am I up to in the course? Again, each of those areas are editable, and of course roll over from semester to semester if we want them to. No. Deconstructed that into modules within Moodle. Yeah. Sometimes using Moodle books, sometimes just using PDFs and things like that, or HTML pages, depending. Some legacy courses, some courses that are where the lecturers have been a bit more resistant to change, have taken the PDFs from the old study package and just put them up, but they don't put them up as a whole package, they put them up as the individual modules. Moving very much towards, well, that's all now sits within our repository or in Moodle books. Yeah. Yeah, so we can add extra editing. We can put in extra information up there underneath that title if we wanted to, giving some extra information for how they should use the study schedule. This person hasn't in this case. Can do. It's not. So you don't have to be the same, but it's about consistency. That they know at least that there's a study schedule. They know that that's where they're going to get their assessment items. They know that that's where they're going to hit the forums. Again, dynamically generated in Moodle, so that lecturers don't have to set it up themselves. The staff information comes in, who's leading the course, again housed in PeopleSoft. And again, they can edit that if they want to, put in extra information, add in other people, change the order of those people on the site if they need to. And which one's this? This is the forums. So I've just brought that forums page, which you normally have in Moodle, back up to the surface a bit more. As a specific forums page, showing the amount of unread messages and things like that in it. Yeah. Really love Moodle to have a kind of tick to say which are the important messages to go back to. We're kind of working with Moodle a bit to get that happening, and haven't quite gone there yet. With the forming of the new Moodle Association, hopefully we can progress that a little bit more. Hasn't been seen as that important by Moodle HQ at this point, but we're kind of working with them to. We were the first university in Australia to move to Moodle as a corporate system. And so we've got some good relationships with Moodle HQ. Michael Durrata, who's one of their main developers, researchers, used to be a USQ lecturer. So got some good relationships there with Moodle. And one of the other tabs is the calendar tab, which draws on stuff from individual courses and from the corporate calendar as well. So if I went into that, it's smart enough to know, okay, I'm in 4 courses, and it will show the information in there for the 4 courses that I'm associated with, and the other stuff that the university wants to push their way. So, no, we think that's pretty cool. Took us a while to get that. Took us a $1.8 million project to pull it all together, but we got there. Yeah. But it's worth doing. It's really paid benefits. For staff love it now. They really bucked the first time it went out because, oh my God, that's so different. I don't know what to do with it. It took them a while. We probably should have spent more time with them preparing them. We tried, but most of them didn't read the emails. I teach as well, so don't get me wrong. I teach as well in the our faculty of education, so I'm whoops, just as guilty as everybody else. So what we've tried to do now is let's move on to how we align that support and training for that environment. So we think that there's 3 main pillars to professional development for staff and students. More the 3 for staff, 2 for students. There's context. What is the system we're talking about? Why are we using this system? What's it do? Training in the system. Once I know that it's there and know what it's about, where can I access training? And also, that's fine, we can learn how to use the system. How are some of the really neat things we're going to do in that system around making learning and teaching a bit more fun for students and a bit more engaging for students? The pedagogy, andragogy, pedagogy, whatever you want to call it. So, for staff, for students, we think that there's those 3 requirements for staff. Students don't necessarily need to know so much about the pedagogy behind the way it's being developed. So there are information areas for each of those 5 contexts. So in the staff instance, so here's the front page of our staff desk, our Moodle staff desk. This is called USQ Connections. It's the VC's communications page. It's a frickin' mess, but she likes it, so it's beautiful. You'll see across the top here the whole lot of tabs we've put in. Again, another little bar we've put in, and they're our professional development tabs. So Staff LE stands for Staff E-Learning Environments. Clover is the training site, and PLAS is the pedagogy site. And then there's HR training and a general staff development page as well. So we've put professional development up front and up top in terms of our priorities in that staff environment. Bearing in mind that our job is about learning and teaching. The university is there to teach students, so we've got to ensure that our training of our staff is front and centre. If I go into the Staff Alley page, here's where I get the context information about our study desk, our e-portfolio, about assessment, things like that. So if I went into the assessment one, I would, or I could go and get some information again about that site itself and the question mark up the top. Anyway, assignment. I go into assignment. We break that down a little bit. This is a Moodle block we've put. This is an HTML editor we've put into the site, into Moodle, to make it easier for staff to update it, keep it up to date, and provide a bit of consistency across. Still using tabs and things like that on the left-hand side. Still using the 2 columns. Assessment, so I'm choosing what I want to do. What am I saying? Electronic assignment, electronic assignment submission. So I'm going into electronic assignment. There's a little blurb from one of the lecturers who's used it. It scrolls down to extra information about that. Really helpful little videos. Over the last 2 years, we have made hundreds, I mean literally hundreds, if not 1,000 videos, just using Adobe Captivate. Which of course uses that underlying text, and so it can be easily updated. We also use Camtasia Relay as our main lecture capture system, and Camtasia Studio for editing and things. Assignments, those little videos there. If I'm going into and extra help information, takes you off to the training site if you need to. If I went to the training site, that's our Clover site. There's training in terms of Moodle, Blackboard Collaborate and things like that. This is run by our ICT department, so which is why it's not as nice as the page we put together. We're right in the process of stripping this out and putting it into Right Now. We've actually found that Moodle is not necessarily always the right place to put stuff like this. The Right Now system is proving really quite neat in terms of some of the support activity or the help information. I'll show you a little about that when we get to the student one. But it hasn't been launched yet, so it launches late November. Back to the staff front page again. I'm going off to the PLAS. PLAS is where staff would go to get the pedagogy stuff. So, how do I establish a rubric or marking criteria? Or, what kind of activities could I do in ePortfolio to get students engaged in that learning and things like that? So, there's discussion forums in there and things for the staff. Again, using tabs down the left-hand side and the main course activities area. And again, the top right-hand corners, there's the question mark if they want to be taken off to the Staff Right Now system. So staff, we have 2 Right Now systems, one for staff, one for students. We had one across the board for staff and students. It was a freaking nightmare. I mean, just students were getting staff info, it was just hopeless. So we stripped all the staff information out a couple of years ago now, just focused it on students. And it's taken us a while to get now to the point where we can start releasing the staff one back out to staff. That's how we support staff. Students, let's look at what Jeff Scott a few years ago now said. In his report accessing student voice, he said students are not concerned about whether or not a particular interaction is academic or administrative, but they are concerned about the quality of the interactions. And so they don't know what the query's about. What really? I mean, they've just got a problem. They want it fixed. So we've got to provide the systems and the wherewithal to be able to find to kind of nuance that through a bit. So what we did is we broke the student learning journey down and looked at all the different component parts of the student learning journey, put it across those main areas, and found that there are about 150 individual interaction points that we can find with students around major interactions they have with the university. And across those 9 the main areas, going from decision to enrol right through to alumni and things like that. Because we all know it's so important to continue that relationship with our students, get them coming back for postgrad study and things like that. So what we did is we looked at engagement, enrolment, orientation, transition, learning support, progress, graduation and alumni, and put all these little, these are some of those 150. I haven't put all the 150 up there because it just gets so over the top. Tried to break them down into clusters there. And we'll do a little activity in a few minutes' time around this. I'm going to talk through some of the things. I'm obviously not going to talk through 150 things, but I will talk about some of the key relationships we've developed over the time. Some of the key things: student relationship officers, SROs. There's some of the SROs there. They deal directly with the students. We have 40 SROs. Taken a lot of weight off the academic staff. Now, 40 SROs don't deal all their time, every day. They might have other jobs as well. It's part of their workload to be a student relationship officer. There are there's 10 dedicated ones whose full-time job it is SROs. There's another 30 that have that as part of their responsibilities. And it's quite a complex system, so I can't go into too much detail, but if you want to know more, I'm happy to provide more details. The student relationship officers are the key frontline people for supporting staff. We also have, of course, academic learning support people, so that's support in terms of maths, English, communications, learning technologies. So this year we actually started a full-on support for our learning technologies for students in a face-to-face environment. So our learning centre, not just now English and maths, but also stuff to do with our learning management system. And students can make appointments to come into our learning centre and have a face-to-face discussion with one of our learning support people. Peer-assisted learning, we call it Meetup. Other people call it other things. Incredibly important, particularly in our first-year programs. Student peer mentoring. We pay them a little bit of money to be involved. It's an ex-student from MGT 1000. Introductory to management, comes back, says, oh look, I was a good, the lecturer says, look, you're a good student, you want to come and kind of mentor some students next year and things like that. So really important program. It's now across, I think it's in 40 of our core courses, the main core courses across the university. So. Primarily in first year. Yeah, no, quite a bit. We have an online training site for them, so a Moodle site for training them. And so the question was, what training do you give them? They have an online training site. They have face-to-face meetings with more experienced mentors again, and also with our learning support staff who support them. They have we have an admin person as well to help them. We pay them. It's kind of a pass model. It's kind of a pass model. But we've adjusted it to suit particularly our distance students. Yeah. Okay, youth retention strategy, which is really about what we've been doing, talking here through our support strategies and things like that, which has really paid dividends. So we've seen the retention rate just kind of continue to improve particularly over the last 5 years. Just this constant increase in the numbers of retention, and the retention numbers, I should say, which the federal government really likes. They like to see that. They give you extra money sometimes for doing that, so it's a good incentive there. Communities of practice, very strong communities of practice. I don't know if anybody may have heard of Jackie McDonald. She was an OLT National Fellow in terms of communities of practice. Works with our learning teaching systems, learning teaching services, associate professor. Very strong community practice model across academic development and now also into the student mentoring and things like that. So simple model. I mean, you meet for an hour and a half, I think it is. First half hour is basically fellowship. Second half hour is somebody talking about a particular topic. Third half hour is discussion and just throwing ideas around and things like that. So very simple model, 3-tier model, but incredibly powerful. You can do it in an hour with 20-minute blocks if you want to. We get central funding for that. So there's an HR completely supported. They have a person now to be full-time support for communities of practice. We much more success in getting people to that than we have to sit down professional development activities.
Excuse me, Michael, one of our virtual attendees said, did did you say that the learning unit had mass support structured into learning support at the
Yes.
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 Okay.
We do. Graduate skills capabilities, a lot of work goes in with that and the use of e-portfolio, things like that, preparing students for how to evidence their skills. It's so important for them to actually understand from day one they're on a journey. And they're on a journey to become a teacher, a nurse, a lawyer and things like that. And it's our job to actually help them achieve that goal. And so although they might be fronting up to 24 different academics over that period of time, the university actually understands that they're part of that journey and that they are trying to be this professional. E-portfolios plays an incredibly important role in that. Closing the loop on student feedback. So now we've developed that system so whereby the student evaluations come through, key words are sought through that student evaluations, and lecturers are actually asked to respond to the students as to what they've done about it. So students say, look, you didn't give me enough information about assessment in the course. In the feedback system, lecturer might say, okay, well, I'll take that on board. Says back to the system, look, we've taken that on board. We are now going to introduce some more information about assessment into the course for the next iteration. Obviously, it's too late for this one. For the next iteration, we'll add some more information in about it. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback. That has had such goodwill that students can see there's some history in terms of how they've been listened to, which was also one of those things that help them give that feedback. Importantly, of course, alumni, important across most universities. We haven't been strong in that in the past, but put a lot more emphasis now on that. So again, some of our student relationship officers here, there's key dates in terms of their retention management. So they will hit our systems and we'll pull the analytics down each of these times. They'll hit the data on who hasn't hit the courses in the introductory week. At the end of week 3, beginning of week 4, we've said that there has to be an assessment item by the end of week 3 for every course. Some kind of assessment item the students have to engage with. So in week 4, if they hadn't hit that assessment item, they will be on to them. Week 4 is the week before close-off dates for the course and things like that, census date. So they need to get to them before census date to see if they are going to continue on and things like that. Yeah?
This one makes sense to you, but can you tell me how many assessment items course coordinators are out of how many courses? So how many assessment items does each course allow? Or do we have recommendations? There is we say 3 assessment. No, 3 is the minimum. Okay, 3 is the minimum assessment items. There is a maximum, but it's difference between schools. So maximum I think is 10, but that is usually smaller quizzes and things like that. So in terms of main, does it depend on absolutely depends on the discipline. Yes. So minimum 3 has to be 1 before week 3. Those disciplines that require professional accreditation and things like that, there's certain rules and regulations about others. Like in the visual arts, don't get me wrong, my undergraduate was in visual arts, so are a little bit more. Okay, cool. Maximum of 2. Yes, right. 2.5 on average.
Yeah. So for those online, somebody's saying that there's UniSA moving to 2. Did I say something?
Yeah, that's summative assessment though. So there are formative assessments.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sorry, summative assessment. I think John, you're referring to there. So it's obviously formative assessment. So I guess it's how we actually want to review what assessment is. So is it a checkpoint of, this is going to apply to their final grade, or is it a checkpoint around how we actually improve their learning, of which you can have as much feedback in that case as you would like, and you can still make it mandatory for students to complete a formative assessment. It just doesn't account for their final grade.
So there's no incentive for them to do it. was what you're saying.
Oh, then you can't complete the course without doing it.
Even the summative assessments. Formative assessments.
You can have it as a hurdle.
Okay. Well, that's just a default. That's just defaulting back to a... Anyway, no, no worries. I'll let you guys work that one out. Any other questions online while we've got this pause? Okay, cool. Okay, so there's these checkpoints in our attention management system, and SROs are responsible for those checkpoints. And we'll draw on the data to do that. So at the end of week 3, I've already said that. Assignment, non-submission, and missed exams, of course, are a key thing as well. We were in Sydney, my wife and I were in Sydney a few years back, and we were just driving back to Toowoomba, and a son rang us up and said, "Oh, forgot to turn up for my exam." What do I do? Yeah, don't worry. You have that. You get that A. Okay, in our website, current students is where the students will go to. So this is on the university website. Current students is where they go to get all their information in relation to their studies. Down the bottom, not surprisingly, they can get in touch with their SRO straight away. So even if they get to that page and think, "What the hell am I doing?" they can get in touch with their SRO straight away at that point. Learning support is what I'm talking about here. So going to the Learning Centre site, again, constrained a lot by the website that we use, website technology we use. I'm going to delve into the USQ Study Desk Skills site here, and this is what it looks like. This is the student version of the staff site, okay? And so they can get their information about the Study Desk e-portfolio, turn it in, and this is completely lined up with our Right Now system. And so if I go into here, there's also, I can get up to the Right Now system up there as well. I go into the USQ Study Desk and I'll pick a topic in which I want to find the information out about, whether it's setting up editing a wiki or your profile or whatever it might be. I'll downloading a lecture recording. I'll go in, it'll come to the help system, the Right Now system. It will provide them with the key information, it'll provide them the dot points, it'll provide them with a video. That Right Now system, if they went up to that top bar and typed in lecture recording, would come to that exact same page. Okay, so that's built across the whole of that support structure. There's little videos for them with transcripts. Again, Adobe Captivate videos for them, which work them through the whole process of downloading the lecture capture. Of course, if they get stuck and want more information, they click on the question mark at the top of the page. Every student gets one of these flyers in there through orientation. Every bag has because this is the system they're going to mostly interact with. So here they go. That's where you get support. This is where the times you're going to get support in face-to-face scenario, or you get it online. International students, we have strong support for international students. Again, talk to your student relationship officer. Talk to your student relationship officer. Talk to your student relationship officer. It's really enforcing that message throughout that program. Smart thinking we use for those. So we do offer 24/7 support, not on Toowoomba campus though. So smart thinking is the system we use across, which is based in the UK and England, and USA and in England. And that's 24-hour support interacting with people online in relation to maths and communication skills. Meet up student community site. So we talked about that. I talked about that site where they would go in and get support for the mentors. And now, here we go with Right Now again, what we call our Student Success Planner. So again, using that Right Now tool, I click on Preparing for an Exam. So that's the topic for this time. We're coming up to the exam period, it's 2 weeks out from exams. We could have any preparing for assignments or whatever it is. So the hot topic is for the moment, preparing on exams. I click on that. I come into this system, or the other way, sorry, getting it to it is through other parts of the system where this little widget will appear. Come into the site. Now students say, okay, I'm struggling with my exam. This is John. So it recognises who you are as soon as you go in the site because you're logging. It's defaulted to exams because that's the smart thing that put it right there. So exams, okay, I want tips for revision, but particularly I want to get information about time management and things like that. It could be about study strategy, stress management, other things. But in this particular case, it's around tips for revision and more importantly, time management. So they go next, and it gives them information they require, which is housed within our Right Now system in terms of time management and reviewing for exams. It then has tips through those, so they expand out to more information if they want it. So there's a quick tip, then more information if they want it. And then the system follows them up. 24 hours later, the system will follow them up, say, did we answer your question? And if not, it goes back to an SRO, and the SRO will help them. Well, not 24 hours, sorry, it's a few hours later. And then the next day, they get another reminder. That's right. Okay, just launched our new social site, USQ Social, which is where all the blogging happens, all the Instagram feeds go to and things like that. I won't go into that now because I'm running out of time quite drastically because I've spoken too much. What I'd like to do, just for a few minutes, I know we're running out, but for those online, I'm going to, in our little groups here, I've got these sheets. So somebody can help me just hand out these sheets, do you think, to the tables? Good-o. At least he gets to do something. Every student gets this, as I said. Now, the people online, that sheet. People online aren't going to be able to see this, unfortunately, unless I hold it up to the camera, which I can. They've seen that. Every staff member, can you hold that up to the camera? Every staff member gets this. Sorry, you just fell off the perch. Every staff member gets this. So, you know, I had those four support sites. Every staff member gets this little bit of cardboard to put on their desk. And what it is it's a pen holder. So this is a good test for an academic. You've actually got to put the pen holder together.
Can you do it?
I can do it. I've done it. I've demoed this a few times now. It took me a while to start with. So every academic gets this. Really, they do. And that's their pen holder, USB holder, things like that. And it's got the three support sites on it. Okay? So everyone gets, if they want to, they can put it on their desk. Every staff member gets a Moodle 2 poster for their wall, an A2 poster, which does all the tools in Moodle and things like that. I didn't put a slide cap on about that. Okay, so in the front of this activity here, and I'm going to put the online people back to the page with those steps on it, in your group, just for a couple of minutes. I want you to prioritise 3 things that I've talked about here. I may not have talked about it, but they're on the sheet here as well. 3 things, and I suggest we look at so the middle 2, orientation, transition, learning support for students, and student progress. Just those 3 areas there. Just identify a couple of things in your first, individually, that you think you might be missing out on. That you could do more around this place. Okay? UniSA or whatever institution you're in, what are 3 things on that list that you think you should prioritise for thinking about further action, things like that? So the first thing is just identify those 3 things. So for those online, I'm going to take you back to the slide that had that list on it. Boy. Oh, there we go. Yeah. No. Okay, there's that list. Have a look at that list. Think about 3 things that you could do to, that's right, put them up online. 3 things that you identify and that you think your institution could be doing a little bit better. Yeah, sure. No worries. Yeah. Yep. Okay, you might have identified 3 things. Just talk amongst your table, see if there's any commonalities in those 3 things. Now, those in online, of course, will see the other things people might have been typing. So if they have, Just have a look at those things that others might be typing, see who that is that has been typing that. You can, I think, in the day we connect, you can talk back to the other person individually. I'm not sure, can you? If an individual clicks on a name, can they chat to that person individually or not?
We may not have a name.
Oh, okay, that's all right. Yep, right. No one waiting? Is that? No. There's no one waiting for the government. Oh, okay.
But people might disappear because they're expecting 9:30, so they might.
Cool. Got some things? Hey.
Setting expectations is probably one of the big things.
Yeah.
As you know, our university, I've been doing it for decades anyway, we actually have a strategy now for digital learning strategies thing that Provost has put out. And they're nice little pamphlet and stuff, but there's sort of an expectation for stuff of what's the expectation for students, how it's being communicated to students, especially to the new cohort coming in for next year.
Yeah.
This is what we expect you to do now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just there. It's like, no, we actually need to help them. And more importantly, I think for our second and third and fourth years that are continuing on, they probably need more support because it's a paradigm change for them, whereas the new students just coming into this paradigm, it's just like, oh, okay, this is pretty good.
Yeah.
So I think there's a high level of that expectation and how supported a lot of the students get. I know, just give up half the time. They've got the 5 seconds on Facebook. Oh no, it's too hard.
Yeah. Actually, I should mention I didn't mention that's a good point. Our social media strategy, that's right. Yeah. Did you get some things? Okay. Cool. Thank you. All right. Okay. Let's. Yeah. So on this table here, the bigger of the tables, I think. Somebody got some commonalities on this table?
I just noticed that I can't see e-portfolio on there. How that's
The question was that the attendee couldn't see e-portfolio mentioned.
Well, so there. Okay. Yeah.
saying, well,
Didn't I put it on there?
keen on e-portfolios.
I think that's an oversight on my part. Yeah.
Because you're talking about the journey and you're
Yeah, absolutely.
e-portfolio.
I mean, in that regard, we're talking about e-portfolio embedded at the course level, not as a student support strategy. These are student support strategies, so we don't use e-portfolio as a student support strategy. So it's a teaching strategy. But yeah, I can see what you mean though, particularly in terms of student profiles not on there, because that's housed within our student e-portfolio system. Anyway, I'll have a look at that. I might have actually just missed that out. Yeah. So anything else on this table? Hang on, just a mic for the online people.
Okie dokies. We had looked at, was it the online student peer network kind of, I think more what piqued our curiosity and the student relationship officers really sort of maybe as a wish list rather than something that's immediately doable, but something interesting to pursue. And for me, the online workshops and maths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thanks, Jane.
Yeah, anybody else on this table? What about on this table over here?
Any responses?
What have you come up with on this table here? 2 groups? Yeah.
Yeah, we looked at a range of things. We agreed that there was a need for more international support, international student support, checking the data, so we know what's going on. Counselling resources, I just noted. The personal SRO, like that idea. What did I miss? Online workshops as well, yeah.
Yeah. I should have mentioned we also use Moodle for online orientation for new students. So we have an orientation site within Moodle, help them understand what Moodle does and things like that.
Yeah, we agreed online workshops, sort of the intervention type methods, and even peer networking, so support networks for students. They may be there, but as a staff member, I'm not sure if they're there, so I don't know whether or not to, I don't know how to inform students of them if they're there.
Anybody else here? Anything else? The same ones? Yep, cool. How about on this table over here? Man with the corduroy jacket.
Well, I don't think we actually got a chance to look at it.
No, that's all right.
But I like the idea of the student relationship officer. Anything to do with that I thought was really good. We've been talking about that for a couple of years now, but nothing much has been done on it.
Yeah.
And the online, our online is either very good or very bad.
Yeah.
And just putting a whole lot of notes up there, it doesn't mean it's good. It's just online, it's in electronic form. So anything to do with that is good.
Yes. Yeah. I suppose I should have, and just in relation to that, if a staff member chooses not to use the study schedule, okay, so if they choose not to populate the study schedule, the student won't see it. It won't appear in the Moodle environment. Okay, it has to be populated for it to appear. So the staff member may not choose to have a study schedule at all. So the student at least knows that there's not going to be a study schedule in that particular course. That's there as a prompt for the staff member to actually put the study schedule in. Yeah.
Okay, under orientation transition, one was the orientation on the LMS, but I think before that, Professor Sankey talked about preparing for the experience and setting expectations. So not only for, obviously for our new students coming into our environment and setting the expectations for them under this new digital learning strategy we've got here and how that will operate for them, but I think more so for our existing cohorts of first, second and third that are transitioning to the next year, what that means for them and making sure that we carry everyone on that journey. So not only staff know what's happening, but also more importantly, the student knows what's happened, that there is support for them in the virtual environment, and that could be through our Moodle management system, learning management system, but it also could be through Facebook or other social media type sites as well that we do have to support those students to make sure that we bring them along. And obviously it requires staffing for that to occur. That's what we came up with.
Yeah, cool.
Thank you, Darren. And last table, do you guys want to speak? John?
Here we go.
Probably covered most of it. Personal SROs we liked, online workshops in maths, SMS announcements more broadly would be good. And also I wondered about learning support in other languages, particularly we have some dominant on this campus, lots of Chinese, might be helpful.
Yeah. There's some questions online. So.
I think there's some suggestions that people have commented.
Oh, yeah, cool. So, hang on, where are we going? Currently, postgraduate nursing have done things online with Michael's suggestions. Cool. Really agree. Think 2 columns approach, good. So, look at that. Orientation on Moodle, academic invention, employment, will. Will's an important thing. And mentoring, yep. SRO, first year mentoring, definitely. Peer assisted learning, maths, so they're the things, yep.
The SROs seem to be a bit of a winner this morning.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What I might, just considering the time, what I would like you to do now is you've got your individual list. I want you to keep that page. What I want you to do, what's today? Tuesday?
Wednesday.
Oh, sorry.
Even in Queensland, it's Wednesday. Yeah.
Assignment's due. Okay, your assignment is due on Monday. So Jeff Scott's got a famous line. What are you going to do on Monday? Anybody heard that? All these blank looks. Okay. You heard that, Shane? No. Okay. Jeff Scott's. Okay, you got this information in your head. What are you going to do with it? What I want you to do is write on the bottom of your page what I am going to do on Monday. So next Monday, write a note for yourself now. What am I going to do about this? It might be tweet something, might put something on your blog, might be write a letter to Badger Shane about something. I don't care what it is, but do something about the thing that you've identified there. Just do something about it. Doesn't matter what it is, but do something. Just take one step forward. Hopefully, maybe get a bit of momentum and take a second step. And once you get that momentum going, but do something. Don't just go away from here and think, no, oh, okay, that was interesting. Love that. Write it down now. What are you going to do on Monday? You've got a few days to think about how you're going to do it, what you're going to do. Write down what that thing is that is important to you to do.
Okay, online folks, if you have a question for Michael, could you please put it into the general chat window now? Now is your chance. Thank you.
Question here? Yeah.
You talked earlier about the online support for maths, smart learning,
Smart thinking?
smart thinking. Is that free?
No,
Oh,
absolutely not.
is it very expensive?
Compared to having a person sitting there after hours doing something, no. So I can't remember what it is. I better not give a figure, but it's equivalent to having a full-time staff member who actually sits there overnight answering queries and things like that. Because we have people from 365 days a year. Yeah. So we have people studying in 90 different countries. So it has to be 24/7, that kind of support. Yeah.
Okay, are there any questions for Michael in the room?
Left-hand chat.
From Hong Mai? Yes. How do you mark large volume assignments electronically?
I don't. How we... unfortunately, I would love to say there was a magic bullet for that, but there's not. We've actually done a lot of work in Moodle assignment, a lot more work than Moodle's done in Moodle assignment, or even Flinders have done in Moodle assignment. We've actually reworked Moodle assignment altogether and are now starting to feed that stuff back into Moodle. What we've done is we've reworked the whole market distribution element within Moodle. We've aligned it more also with the PDF annotation and things like that. So downloading as PDF and annotating, putting back up. We've tried to build some smarts into the rubrics within that, but there's no. I'm sorry, I haven't got any magic bullets in terms of how you deal with large assessment cohorts. Absolutely, yeah. So we do a lot of peer assessment, so students marking other students' work and then being moderated by staff. We do quite a bit of that, I'd have to say. Using now PeerMark with Turnitin. We did have a module in Moodle which was written by Michael Durat actually called PeerLearn, but it's now been deprecated. We now use PeerMark within Turnitin for that.
Okay, thanks Michael. So are there any more questions in the room? Okay, there's one over here. Hang on a second.
This may be a little different, but what is your percentage of permanent staff on the university staff versus sessional or tutors or people that you employ from outside to work in all this process?
The figure that pops to mind is 30%, but I don't know why that figure pops into my mind. 1,800 staff. Quite a lot. Yeah, I think it's about 30% are sessional staff. Yeah. About 30% markers, people like that. Are they involved in all of this program equally with the... Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So they have access to all the Moodle sites and things like that, the staff training sites, things like that. Yeah, definitely. We have an online... So for every sessional staff, there's a mandatory 3-hour Moodle session they have to do to come up to speed for, like, if they're marking and things like that. So we built with quizzes and things like that. They have to work through those quizzes and things and the information before they can mark or before they can tutor. So there's a 3-hour mandatory. We've worked it out to be 3 hours. They could do it quicker if they want. They can guess the answers. But we say it's a 3-hour mandatory training thing for sessional staff on whatever discipline they're doing. If they're doing multiple, if they're tutoring and marking and things like that, they go to the full day induction. But there's also the online induction as well. So, yeah. Yeah, they can be.
The question was,
course
can they be course
yeah,
coordinators?
if they're a course coordinator, they have to do the full day orientation.
Thanks, Michael. I've got a quick question for you. I was very interested what your quote, and you said video is the new currency of higher education.
Yeah.
Could you expand on that a little bit?
Okay, so let's look at Coursera, TEDx, things like that. I mean, they are all the MOOCs that we now see. We look at Open University Australia's open courses and things like that, the Open University UK, all base their teaching on video. Video snaps, whether it be 10-minute slots, maximum 10 minutes, usually about 7-minute slots, working through key concepts. So we don't see that as being text-based. It can be supported by text, but we see the currency of higher education as being predominantly now video. We've now got almost ubiquitous broadband, so that we don't see that we're disadvantaging any students now by putting that weight on video. We prefer to use the shorter, sharper chunks rather than the 3-hour, 2-hour, 1-hour lecture online. If we do that, it still happens, and it does happen, but we prefer to work with staff to get them to do nuanced, specific chunks and data, and, rather than through the learning management, through our repository.
The question was, are the videos interactive with students and staff?
So we use a lot of Blackboard Collaborate for that. Also Zoom now. Zoom's really zooming along. So Zoom is provided by Arnet. It hasn't got breakout rooms. So we're heavy users of Blackboard Collaborate. There's probably 200 online classrooms at any one time, any semester. But Zoom is really taking off. It will have breakout rooms by March next year, at which point we'll be able to phase out Blackboard Collaborate, and potentially, I don't know, we'll see, and then move towards Zoom as being our main platform for telelearning. What we're trying to do is a lot more of this type of stuff, so engaging our distance students online at the same time as we're engaging our face-to-face students. So what we'd do is we might have a couple of students with their iPads monitoring the chats and then passing on the questions to the lecturer in the room.
Are they paid?
No.
They're doing the current class.
They're doing the current class. Yeah. It's just a thing. Yeah. Some lecturers give them a 1% kind of thing, but usually you share it round, so it's not the same person each week doing it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that's all we've got time for today. Oh, hang on, there's one more. Is there another question?
Yep. The Moodle induction training is mandatory. Yes, they have to do that by HR regulations. Yes. And so we tick them off once they've completed that. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much. If you could join me in thanking Michael very much for his session today. We really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Michael. It was a very interesting session. And this obviously will be recorded and sent out to everybody a bit later. So if you're registered for the session, you'll receive a link. And as I said before, this is the last one for the year. And thank you very much for coming along to all of these sessions. We've really enjoyed seeing you. And we're going to do it all again next year. So keep your eye out for the various announcements on Yammer and through the staff announcements. And hopefully we'll see you next year for some more breakfast sessions. Thanks very much. See ya.